Now, I wasn't planning on making a video about the recent Dior allegations, but I got thoughts, for whatever they're worth. Hello and welcome to A Briefcase of Luxury, a place where we love to chat about all things related to life, learning, and luxury. I've been keeping things pretty lighthearted on my channel, focusing more on the luxury rather than the life and learning, only because that seems to be what most people tune into, and also because I'm pretty brain dead by the time the weekend rolls around, which is typically when I set aside time to film. But I guess I can't really lean on that as an excuse since it is summer. So just to preface this video and to give you some perspective about my thoughts on Dior and the way I view the whole kit and caboodle. I am a researching business strategy professor, and one of my main areas of research is corporate reputation, along with decision making. So I have published studies on how crises, negative financial performance, quality failures, etc., how these all affect companies based on the contingency of their corporate reputation. I've published studies on the timing of these negative events, the severity of the event, etc., and whether having a good reputation can help or hurt in light of these events. And so partly I apologize if I seem callous or indifferent to the recent Dior allegations, because none of this is new, none of this is shocking, but just so we get this out of the way, it still doesn't make it right. Now, I'm not going to go over the deets of the allegations. You've probably seen enough videos to get the gist. We have exorbitantly high retail prices. We have ridiculously low manufacturing costs. And in between there, we have poor, even allegedly illegal working conditions. So what I want to focus on instead is the anticipated response, the reactions of consumers like you and me. Like, what are you going to do about Dior moving forward? Like, let me know down in the comments below. Like, whether you decide to boycott the company from here on out or just temporarily, or whether you continue to support the company, i.e. by continuing to buy from them, both new in-store and pre-loved, just because buying pre-loved still feeds into their corporate reputation and overall company values. Like, let's just make sure that your actions match your intentions. After all, that's key to mindful consumption, right? Now, if you decide to boycott Dior, that's fine, but what exactly was your triggering point about the scandal? I think we can break it down into three major pieces of information. One, you're mad about the high retail prices that only seem to be increasing. Two, you're mad to find out that these super expensive handbags really cost pennies to produce. Or three, you're mad that something so luxurious was made in such non-luxurious conditions. So which is it for you? I only bring this up because I've seen so many videos where people state that they no longer want to buy Dior or luxury for that matter because these allegations are said to affect more than just Dior, and other houses will soon be named, and instead they will be focusing on supporting the less selfish mid-tier brands instead, and that's fine. The question then becomes, what did you find more upsetting, the high margins or the poor working conditions? If it's the high margins, then the solution of buying mid-tier instead is defensible, right? Essentially, there's a price point where you're comfortable knowing that there's a possibility that workers are still being exploited, but at a lesser cost to you. Now, that came off a lot more judgy than I expected, so please don't be offended because I haven't stated my views, so don't come at me quite yet. I am no saint of a consumer myself, but if it's the poor working conditions that you find most upsetting, then that's going to take a little bit more investigative powers and efforts on your end to ensure that the new mid-tier brands that you are now supporting instead are not also engaged in these behaviors. Now, I think what is shocking for a lot of people is that they didn't expect this to be happening at the top tiers of luxury. But the reality is there have been ongoing reports and investigations for years across these brands. And I mentioned that over a year ago in my video about Balenciaga and the backlash they were facing from one bad marketing campaign versus the lack of backlash that companies should be facing for actual ongoing bad business practices. However, we expect this for the most part to be happening at all other levels of retail. Like, the cheaper the product, the more we expect these types of illegal or unethical working conditions. So at the end of the day, there does seem to be a price ceiling at which point we no longer tolerate these conditions, which means we are less likely to tolerate these conditions from certain brands specifically, those that do operate above that price ceiling. And so I suppose the other option is to identify luxury brands that have better working conditions and support those brands instead. But considering that Dior is part of the LVMH conglomerate and they are the largest luxury parent company in the world, it may be difficult to do, especially if we consider Dior to just play a subsidiary role. So maybe we need to look at smaller niche designer brands instead that don't have super high demand, because it's a vicious cycle to keep up with viral consumer demand, which I'm assuming was the problem that Dior ran into. Now, if you do decide to continue to support and to buy from Dior, that's fine as well, right? That is your prerogative as a consumer. For instance, maybe Dior or LVMH is just a day away from issuing a public statement on what they will do to remedy the situation. Would that be enough for you as a consumer if they came out to say maybe that they will better police their contractors, or they will offer compensation to those who were mistreated, or they will have new policies to ensure that this doesn't happen again, or they'll start a new fund or grant to protect factory or artisan workers, etc.? Like, would that be enough for you to forgive and forget, essentially? Or what would they have to do to make it right with you? Now, even if they don't do anything or issue a public statement or apology, I can also see how the decision to continue to buy Dior can be easily rationalized. Like, the factories were just contracted, so they're merely just a partner in their supply chain and not necessarily Dior doing that themselves, etc. Or if you're super jaded like me, it becomes a matter of, show me a company that hasn't made a bad decision. Like, if I genuinely researched every company I buy from groceries to gas, let alone fashion, I wouldn't have time to do anything else in the day. And I wouldn't be able to buy anything from here on out, to be completely honest. I'd be growing my own food, I'd be growing my own cotton and sewing my own clothes, and then I'd be suing myself for my own poor working conditions because I'm a workaholic by nature. I guess my closing thought is this: like, research has shown that we tend to grow more indifferent the more negative news we are exposed to the point where our reactions become less severe over time. So with everything happening in the luxury world lately all piled together on top of each other, this is just one more piece of bad, somewhat expected news, right? And only time will tell how Dior is going to fare. Like, sure, we may see sales dip a little bit, we may see stock prices go down a tad, but do we truly want Dior to declare bankruptcy? Like, would we have won then? Or would the luxury industry have learned their lesson then? Now, I can ramble on forever, but I won't. I just wanted to get a pulse on how everyone else is feeling, if you're feeling anything at all. Like, is Dior still on your wish list, or have they made your ban list? Like, let me know down in the comments below. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so we can catch up next time.